The last cabin. The sun was setting as four friends, Mark, Lisa, Jack, and Sarah, arrived at the old cabin deep in the woods. They had been planning this camping trip for months, looking forward to a weekend of relaxation and adventure. Far from the hustle and bustle of the city, the cabin, though aged and weathered, had a rustic charm. It stood in a clearing surrounded by tall, towering trees whose leaves rustled in the evening breeze. They unpacked their gear, lit a fire, and spent the first night sharing stories and laughter under the starlit sky. The next morning they decided to explore the surrounding forest. The air was fresh, and the forest floor was a tapestry of fallen leaves and vibrant undergrowth. As they ventured deeper, they came across signs of something unusual, footprints that didn't quite look human. They shrugged it off, attributing it to their imaginations or local wildlife, and continued their hike. As dusk approached, they made their way back to the cabin. The night forest seemed different in the fading light, more ominous and foreboding. Shadows stretched long, and strange noises echoed through the trees. An unsettling feeling gnawed at them, but they dismissed it, blaming their nerves. That night the wind howled louder, and the forest seemed alive with whispers. As they settled into sleeping bags, they heard a loud, distant, mournful moan. Mark, the bravest of the group, decided to investigate. He opened the cabin door and froze. In the dim light of his flashlight, he saw fingers shambling towards the cabin. They moved slowly, but with a terrifying persistence. "Guys, come here," Mark whispered urgently. The others joined him at the door, their faces pale with fear. What they saw was a nightmare. Dozens of undead creatures, their rotting flesh hanging from their bones, eyes glowing with an unnatural light. "We need to barricade the cabin," Lisa said, her voice trembling. They quickly moved furniture against the doors and windows, hoping to keep the creatures out. The moans grew louder, and soon the cabin was surrounded. Hours passed, each one more tense than the last. The undead pounded on the walls, their relentless assault testing the cabin's defenses. Their friends huddled together, clutching makeshift weapons, kitchen knives, a fire poker, anything they could find. Just before dawn, the creatures broke through a window. Chaos erupted as the friends fought for their lives. Mark swung a chair, shattering a skull. Lisa stabbed wildly with a knife, her face a mask of determination. Jack and Sarah used the fire poker to fend off the attackers, their hearts pounding with terror. As the first light of dawn crept through the trees, the creatures began to retreat, their moans fading into the distance. Exhausted and battered, the friends surveyed the damage. The cabin was in ruins, and their supplies were nearly gone. "We can't stay here," Jack said, his voice hoarse. "We need to find help." Gathering their remaining strength, they settled into the forest, hoping to find a way out before nightfall. The woods, once a place of beauty and adventure, they had become a labyrinth of terror. They were determined to survive and to escape the nightmare that just turned the camping trip into a fight for their lives. As they moved through the forest, they knew for one thing for certain: they would never forget the night that they spent in the last cabin. The friends moved cautiously through the forest, every sound making their hearts race. The memory of the night that before had haunted them, and they knew they had to stay alert. Hours passed, and the forest seemed endless. They were exhausted, hungry, and their spirits were beginning to wane. Just as hope began to fade, they heard a distant sound. A helicopter. "We need to get to higher ground," Mark said, his voice filled with newfound determination. They climbed a nearby hill, pushing through the underbrush with every ounce of strength they had left. At the top, they waved their arms and shouted, hoping to get the pilot's attention. This helicopter circled once, then descended, landing in a clearing nearby. Relief washed over them as they stumbled towards the aircraft. The pilot, a grizzled man with a kind face, welcomed them, helped them aboard. "What happened out there?" he asked as they lifted off. "It's a long story," Sarah replied, their voice trembling with exhaustion and relief, but we're just glad to be alive. As the helicopter flew away from the forest, the friends looked down at the endless sea of trees below. They had faced their worst nightmare since survived. The memory of the last cabin and the undead creatures would stay with them forever. But they knew they had each other, and that was enough. They had survived.